Welcome, friends. It's actually really lovely to see a full room. I want to acknowledge that we are gathered today on Gadigal land that was never ceded, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. If I complain about my daughters not wanting to do what I ask or, arguing about the legitimacy of my authority, as I think many of you will know, my mother uses a very Irish saying. She says, "They didn't lick it off the road." And what she's actually trying to say is that my girls are a reflection of their own mother, and that anybody who knows me knows I don't take injustice or inequity lightly, and I don't take it sitting down. We must reduce disadvantage across our communities. We need to increase access to secure, affordable housing. We need to improve access to mental health services and healthcare. We need to secure equal education opportunities for all of our kids, no matter where they live in New South Wales. Every day of my work, I see the impacts of the Liberals' privatisation by stealth, and I hear the deafening silence of Labor doing nothing about it. Let's build community capacity. Let's mandate universal design in all new developments to remove physical barriers to services and employment while ensuring a future where we can all age in place. Let's push for regulations that facilitate renewable energy opportunities and partnerships between urban and regional councils that benefit both our urban communities and our regional communities. Let's stem the flow of public money into private hands and end the obsession with roads over rail. I have the representative experience to drive this agenda, and I commit and I see it through. I was elected twice to Marrickville Council and served 2 full terms, including a year as the first female mayor, which was a great honour. I ran for the state seat of Marrickville twice and closed an 11% margin to just 676 votes in 2011, gaining the largest ever Greens primary vote in a general election anywhere in Australia at that time. And I'm extremely proud of that. I worked diligently with our first New South Wales Lower House MP, Jamie Parker, for 5.5 years, building his community networks, ensuring he was re-elected for a second term. There are no shortcuts in politics. It's not enough to connect with a community and then move on to the next thing. It's about staying connected and building trust, which has been proven effective time and time again by the success of local groups like Parramatta Greens, who finally cracked Parramatta City Council with Phil Bradley, and Shoalhaven Greens' Amanda Finlay, where she became the popularly elected mayor of Shoalhaven Council. Campaigns are short-lived, but movements are grown. I can be trusted not to falter, not to deviate from the adopted positions and policies of the Greens New South Wales. I have been tested under extreme scrutiny and enormous pressure from lobby groups and political opponents, and I held the party line. I did not backflip, and I did not vote against adopted party position. Of the 4 candidates in this casual vacancy pre-selection, I'm the only one who can say that. I believe that every activist, every community has the right to protest injustice with the same set of tools. It is disingenuous to support non-violent direct action to stop environmental degradation, but then to argue that support for non-violent direct action by oppressed people is the wrong call. We stand up for people and the planet over power and profit. That's what I did. That's what I continue to do. I've committed 16 years to the Greens New South Wales because we understand that there can be a socially just and ecologically sustainable future that's built on peace and non-violence using grassroots democracy. And that future can be delivered if we work collaboratively, if we engage broadly, and if we speak truth to power. I think that was the last knock.
You got 30 seconds.
Oh, thanks. Well, no worries. I'm up to my last line. I want to make that vision a reality, and that is why I ask for your support. with your number one vote in this pre-selection. Vote one for me. The Greens New South Wales acknowledge the right of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to self-determination and support their right to actively implement it. We support their right to own and manage their land in a way that works towards that. But the Greens New South Wales believe in a just transition away from fossil fuels. The Greens are committed to adequate resourcing and funding of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to manage the impacts of climate change and environmental degradation on their lands and communities. Let's work to continue dialogue and support initiatives that ensure long-term sustainable employment and economic benefits for the Aboriginal Land Council and for the community it's working for. I find this a fascinating one. Our positions are really clear in the Greens New South Wales. We empower women, we have gender equity, and that's why I'm running today in this casual pre-selection. I do not condone and condemn anybody who victim blames. There should be support for victims at all levels in our party, in the public sphere. I haven't had an opportunity, obviously, to condemn Bob publicly myself, but I do not condone his position. I don't think it's too hard. I think people should actually stand up and challenge the people who've been in this party for a long time. You don't have to accept what they say. Bob has brought a lot of positive change to the party. He's driven agendas. He should actually understand quite clearly what it's like to be attacked publicly. I have had the opportunity personally, having gone through some fairly difficult times during my time at Marrickville Council, to speak with Bob and hear his reflections on when he was victimised by the exclusive brethren in Tasmania. He needs to draw on his own experiences and actually support our members and anybody who comes forward to ensure we have clear and transparent processes around investigating those allegations. So I grew up in Casula in southwest Sydney near Liverpool. I feel quite passionate about supporting the people of Western Sydney. I think there are key ways in which the Greens New South Wales can actually connect very, very easily, very simply with Western Sydney. Firstly, we actually go out and we listen to our members in Western Sydney, engage properly with our local groups in Western Sydney, and actually drive some campaigns for them. It's interesting when you look at particularly the roads over rail issue across New South Wales, but across Western Sydney in particular. There's actually the major toll company has a toll revenue plan. So their plan is actually there to build roads and create more tolls and create more financial impost and impacts on the people of Western Sydney. The vast majority of which, over 50%, will be living in Western Sydney by 2022, I think it is. One of the things that I actually drove as part of my work on Marrickville Council was through our regional organisation of councils. We actually, the Greens councillors got together and actually lobbied and advocated for a renewable energy plan across that regional organisation of councils. So 10 local councils working together, and we actually created the Our Energy Future Renewable Energy Master Plan. And part of that master planning was actually looking at how we could develop a partnership, almost like a cooperative, with the regional organisation of councils from southern Sydney and a rural ROC as well, regional organisation of councils, to actually fund a new renewable energy solar farm that would create jobs in the rural and regional area, wherever that council area was, and would then create cost benefit and environmental benefit for the urban councils. It's about building those partnerships across the whole of New South Wales is where I think we can actually create some really tangible, deliverable changes to address climate change. I'd actually, at this point, would like to acknowledge some fantastic work that was done by a previous Greens MLC. Jan Barham, when she was on Byron Council and also in the upper house of State Parliament, worked really hard on building relationships and maintaining relationships with the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council and other regional land councils. And I think what we can do is we can actually build on Jan's work around ensuring we maintain those connections with communities. It's not for us to drive the agenda. It's about us being active listeners and working out how we can collaborate and facilitate the self-determination that they have chosen. I particularly think the work that she did around Indigenous heritage was huge. Within Marrickville Council, we also were one of the first councils to introduce cultural protocols, but also look at intellectual and cultural property rights, and that's something that is quite near and dear to my heart, that people should not have their culture appropriated, and they should indeed have it not just trivialised at the beginning of a Commonwealth Games ceremony either. Great question. I've never heard that before, a 3-pillar green. Yeah. So my first response is that the Greens New South Wales was founded on 4 core principles, and those 4 core principles were designed to be equal and to carry the same weight. It's like having a table. If they're not equal, you can't have a table with 4 legs that's one shorter than the other, 2 shorter than the other. One is longer than the other 3. It wobbles, and everything you put on that foundation rocks and topples. So from my understanding, I don't believe in anything like a three principles green. I don't understand that at all. The other thing I would say is peace and non-violence. One of the great things, one of the great images that the Greens New South Wales can carry forward is the images of people like Cole Charlton and Ian Cohen hanging off the front of those US ships as they came through Sydney Harbour. That's where we actually started, to really nail some work. We've got amazing peace activists that still within Sydney are the organisers for the Palm Sunday rallies. I'd like to one day be able to say that, maybe I'd be up in Queensland with the Quaker Grannies for Peace, having a tea party outside, on the grounds of Talisman Sabre, and protesting in a way that creates massive change in that space. Thanks for the question. I personally am not here for the 24-hour media machine. My job is to represent the Greens New South Wales Party positions and policies, and to actually help people connect with us. But more than that, it's about actually listening and connecting with communities by actually showing them that what our Greens positions are their positions. I have never personally publicly spoken out condemning Greens party position, Greens MPs, Greens members. That's, as an elected representative, it's not your job to put your own personal opinion forward. It's your job to drive the members' positions and the members' plan and the members' vision for where we're going. Thanks for that question, Jane. It's something that I have been thinking about quite a bit, and I find it fascinating. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but the Greens New South Wales website on our homepage, we don't actually say what our vision is. We don't have a vision statement on our website. If we can't put that on the front page, then we are going to have conflict. We are actually going to have a problem because people are going to pull in different directions. If we all can actually focus and understand what's the purpose and what's the outcome we're looking for, that's where I think I can bring some stability and some focus. It's about bringing people back to the focus of what are we trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a fairer, more inclusive and a greener Australia. And I think if we manage to focus on that, that's the key thing. With regards to my ability to be conciliatory, I was the Mayor of Marrickville, where we only had 5 Greens out of 12 councillors. Almost every decision that went through that council during my time as Mayor was unanimous. I build consensus through finding the common ground with people. I will work together, but I want to be there to drive issues, not to drive personalities. Thanks for that, Bharat. I personally, as I've highlighted, I have a real issue with immigration and population and the way that they are drawn together and the way that somehow we create a conflict within our own party and in the community around those issues. I personally have been called a breeder within the New South Wales Greens and find that highly offensive, but you ride the waves. But when we have people within our own party who can speak in that language to the women in our party, that's where the key is. For me, the fundamental issue is it actually comes back to women's rights, their reproductive rights, and how and I find it quite. I'm a second generation Australian. I won the lottery of life. My parents came to Australia and they were white. They didn't have to worry about the White Australia policy. They didn't have to, when they came into Australia in October 1971, other people who wanted to get into Australia were being given, tests in the Gaelic language. Now, if this is crazy. We cannot go back to these restrictive and punitive ways of thinking about how people come to our country, about how we develop our country. Women's education, women's rights, but also you must acknowledge your own privilege when you're speaking about immigration into this country. And we cannot abandon people who all they're looking for is for opportunities to create a better space for their families and for our communities too. Thanks, Tom. That's really that's a really nice question. It's a nice question because most people in the Greens New South Wales have never actually asked me. So thank you for asking the question. I would not have done a single thing differently. I might have not gone on Ben Fordham's radio program, but I think I held the party line well. I am hugely proud to have been part of a council and of the Greens New South Wales who stood up for the human rights of an oppressed people, who stood up for the most oppressed people on this planet. I would not have changed a single thing. The most disappointing thing for me was the fracture that was created within the party. And that wasn't a fracture over, and I would not for one moment believe that it was a fracture over the issue itself. I think it was a fracture around those who believed that it would create detriment to our political gain. And I'm not here about political gain. I'm here about driving our vision and driving what is equitable in our community. It's been fascinating. I think that I like to think that people would understand that I've been I haven't spoken about it publicly. I was never asked with regard to Kate's article. I was not informed that article was being written, nor was I told it was happening until after it was published. So that's always a difficult thing, but at the same time, I know I did the right thing. I know that I took your position forward, and I held my position on that, and I was sorry to see some of my colleagues backflip on that issue. And it did cause a rift, but I think that was more a political game than an actual issue around whether we support human rights, because of course we do. Good question. Nice. Yeah, look, you're spot on, and at the end of the day, my position is that our elected MPs, our representatives, are at the behest of the party. I actually support that the portfolios be brought forward, some negotiation be done around the portfolio mix amongst our MPs. I think people should play to their strengths, and so I don't believe that anybody owns a portfolio. If somebody is within the team, and that's the key thing for me, our MPs are a team, both in the upper house and the lower house. The team needs to play to its strengths. I'm very passionate about the women's portfolio. There is a lot to go to push through there. I'm absolutely passionate about housing, as I mentioned, universal design, but the issue of homelessness, particularly amongst older women, is growing. They're the biggest, the largest number increase in that particular demographic. So those two. Can I say what I might not pick? I don't know. But to be fair, I think that, to be honest and fair, I think there are plenty of MPs in our parliament now, in the Greens party, who have put the runs on the board in the justice field and in the environment field, and they're not my strengths. But so I would, I'd be happy to let people drive those that have the passion, have the knowledge, and have the experience. I was actually told at one stage that I wasn't green enough when I first joined the party, because I grew up working class in Liverpool, in southwest Sydney, and while I never voted Labor, I was never a member of the Labor Party. I grew up in a very much a Labor-dominated area. I have always believed in the power of a union and the power of a collective, and that's why I joined the Greens, because the Greens believes in grassroots democracy. We believe in a collective. I am extremely grateful to the Greens New South Wales for having consensus decision making, where everybody's voice has the same weight, and I guess that's how I am connected to socialism in some way or other. But the collective and consensus decision making, as a representative MP, a representative councillor, when you put forward, you stand there and you are pushing a Greens position or a Greens policy, at the very minimum 75% of the membership voted for that. If it didn't go through on consensus, at least 75% of the people voted for it. And so therefore that even if you don't quite understand the nuance of that position, you can defend it without any bother.